Welcome to subscribe.
You know that feeling when you hear something snap, and before you even look, your gut knows exactly what it was. That's what happened to me. I was standing in the kitchen, just trying to drink a glass of water and calm my nerves. The audition was in 4 hours. 4 hours. My whole life, everything I'd worked for since I was 7 years old, was sitting in that black case on the dining room table. And then I heard it. That sound. Crack. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just this small, sickening snap that somehow cut through the whole house. I turned around so fast I almost dropped the glass. And there she was. My sister Madison. Standing over my open violin case with this little smile on her face. Like she'd just finished a puzzle and was waiting for someone to notice. In her hands, she was holding my bow. Or what used to be my bow. Now it was 2 pieces. Just hanging there, broken clean in half. The bow I'd saved for. The bow my grandma helped me buy before she passed. The bow I was supposed to use in 4 hours to play for the Morrison Scholarship. The one that could actually change my life. "You're always practicing," Madison said. Her voice was so casual, like she was talking about the weather. "It's annoying. The whole house hears you all the time. Maybe now you'll shut up for a while." I couldn't speak. My throat just closed up. My hands were shaking. I walked over to the table, and I looked down at the broken pieces in her hands, and I couldn't even cry. It was like my whole body just went numb. She was 16. 2 years older than me. And she'd hated me playing violin since the first day I brought it home. I don't know why. I never understood it. When I was 7 and wanted to try music, Dad said no at first. Said it was a waste of money, that I'd quit in a month like most kids. But our mom, before she left, she was the one who said yes. She found a cheap rental violin and a teacher who'd give us a discount. She told me if I practiced hard, really hard, I could be good at this. And I did. I practiced every day. Hours and hours. While Madison was watching TV or on her phone or out with friends, I was in my room with the door closed, playing scales until my fingers cramped. When Mom left, when I was 11, I kept practicing. When Dad started ignoring me more and more, focusing everything on Madison and her cheerleading and her friends and whatever she wanted, I kept practicing. The violin became the only thing that was mine. The only thing that nobody could take away. Except now. Madison. I finally got the word out. My voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. "Do you know what you just did?" She rolled her eyes. "God, Emma. Don't be so dramatic. It's just a stick with some horsehair on it. Dad'll buy you another one if you cry hard enough." She said it like it was nothing. Like she'd spilled milk or broken a cheap phone case. Not like she'd just destroyed years of work in 2 seconds. That's when Dad walked in. I heard his footsteps coming from the living room, where he'd been watching the game. He had a beer in his hand and that relaxed look on his face that only went away when I did something wrong. "What's going on in here?" He looked at me, then at Madison, then at the broken bow in her hands. And I saw it. I saw his face change. But not in the way you'd think. He didn't look at Madison. He looked at me. "Well, Emma," he said. "Looks like you're gonna have to skip this one audition. Not that it matters anyway. It's not like you're gonna make a career out of playing some violin." Then he smirked. Actually smirked. The same smirk he'd been giving me for years every time I talked about music. Every time I practiced instead of doing something he thought was useful. Every time I mentioned college, a music program, anything that wasn't just getting some regular job and staying quiet. Madison laughed. She handed him the broken bow and walked past me like I wasn't there. "I'm going to Sarah's," she said. "Try not to cry too loud when I get back." And then it was just me and Dad in the dining room. Him holding my broken bow. Me standing there feeling like the floor had opened up under my feet. You should have been more careful, he said. He put the broken pieces back in the case like they were trash. Maybe this is a sign. Time to grow up and focus on real things. Your sister's got the right idea. Cheerleading, friends, being normal. Not locking yourself in your room with some instrument all day. Dad, she broke it. My voice was shaking now. She came in here and she broke my bow on purpose. She said I was annoying. She said, I heard what I heard. He cut me off. And what I heard was you two arguing and then something breaking. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. What matters is you've got 4 hours before this thing, and no bow. So you're not going. He said it like it was final. Like he was a judge in a courtroom. Case closed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him how much this meant to me, how long I'd been preparing, how many nights I stayed up practicing while everyone else was sleeping. But I knew it wouldn't matter. It never mattered. Not with him. Not when it came to me and Madison. Because here's the thing you gotta understand about my family. There's always been 2 sets of rules. One for Madison. One for me. When Madison wanted new cheerleading uniforms, Dad paid for them. When she wanted to go to summer camp with her friends, he drove her there himself. When she broke things around the house, which happened a lot, it was always an accident. Always. When I needed new strings for my violin, I had to save birthday money for 3 months. When I wanted to go to a weekend music workshop, Dad said it was too much trouble. When Madison broke my music stand last year by knocking it over while she was chasing the dog, Dad said I must have put it in a bad spot. So I knew. Standing there in the dining room, looking at the pieces of my bow, I knew there was no point arguing. There was no point crying. There was no point trying to get him to see what this meant to me. But I also knew something else. Something I hadn't told anyone. Not Dad. Not Madison. Not even my best friend Chloe. 3 weeks ago, when I'd first gotten the audition confirmation letter for the Morrison Scholarship, there'd been a second letter with it. A smaller one, sealed in a different envelope. The letter from the Morrison Foundation said to bring it to the audition unopened and give it directly to the head judge. It said the letter contained information that would be considered during the evaluation process. I didn't know what was in it. I still don't. But I had it. Folded up small in the pocket of my dress, the one I was going to wear to the audition. The dress that was hanging in my closet right now, waiting. And I had something else too. Something that Madison didn't know about. Something Dad definitely didn't know about. My teacher, Mrs. Park, the woman who'd been giving me discounted lessons for years because she believed in me, she had an extra bow. A good one. Not as good as mine, not as special, but good enough to play. She'd told me once that if I ever needed anything, anything at all, I could come to her. She lived 10 minutes away by bike. I looked at Dad, still standing there with his beer, waiting for me to cry or scream or do something he could punish me for. Okay, I said. My voice was quiet, but steady. Okay. You're right. I'm not going. He blinked. He hadn't expected that. I could see it in his face. He was ready for a fight, ready to tell me what a disappointment I was, ready to ground me for talking back. But agreement? That threw him off. Good, he said finally. Good. About time you came to your senses. He finished his beer and set the bottle on the table. Clean up this mess. I'm going back to the game. And he walked out. I waited until I heard the TV come back on. Waited until I heard him settle into his chair with a grunt. Then I picked up my violin case, closed it carefully, and walked to my room like nothing was wrong. But when I got there, I moved fast. I changed into my dress. The navy blue one, simple but nice. The one I'd picked out with Mom before she left, back when she still came to my recitals and clapped louder than anyone. I put my violin carefully on my bed, grabbed the sealed letter from the pocket, and tucked it into my new dress. Then I opened my window. My room's on the first floor. I've done this before. Not for anything bad, just for times when I needed to get out and think without anyone asking questions. I slipped out onto the grass, quiet as I could, and ran to the garage for my bike. 10 minutes. That's all I needed. 10 minutes to get to Mrs. Park's house. My heart was pounding the whole way. My hands were still shaking on the handlebars. But my mind was clear. That's the thing about music. It trains you. When everything's falling apart, you learn to focus on the next note. Just the next note. Don't think about the whole piece. Just what's right in front of you. Mrs. Park was in her garden when I pulled up. She's in her 60s, Korean, with gray streaks in her black hair and the kindest eyes I've ever seen. She took one look at my face and put down her trowel. "Emma? What happened?" "My bow," I said. The words came out fast, tripping over each other. "My sister broke it. On purpose. The audition's in 3 hours. I didn't know where else to go." "You said once," she didn't let me finish. She just nodded and went inside. Came back a minute later with a bow case. "It's not the same as yours," she said, handing it to me. "But it's well balanced. Good Brazilian wood. I used it for years before I retired from performing." I opened the case and looked at it. Dark wood, worn just a little at the frog where her fingers had held it thousands of times. Beautiful. "Mrs. Park, I can't." "Yes, you can." She closed my fingers around the case. "You can and you will. Emma, I've taught a lot of students. Most of them have talent. Some of them have drive. Very few have both. You have both. Now go. I'll drive you to the audition myself." We got there an hour early. The Morrison Foundation building was this big old brick place downtown, with high ceilings and windows that let the light in golden and clean. There were other kids in the waiting room, holding violins and cellos and flutes, looking nervous in their nice clothes. Some had parents with them. Mothers fixing collars. Fathers checking watches. Mrs. Park sat with me, asked me if I wanted to warm up. I did. I found a corner and played through my piece once, quietly. The bow felt strange in my hand, lighter than mine, but good. Responsive. It sang when I asked it to. And while I played, I thought about my dad's smirk. Madison's laugh. The sound of my bow snapping. All of it. I thought about the sealed letter in my pocket. I didn't know what was in it. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever was about to happen in that audition room, my dad and my sister had no idea what was coming. The door opened, and a woman with a clipboard called my name. "Emma Thompson? The judges are ready for you." I stood up. I held Mrs. Park's bow in my hand. I felt the weight of the letter against my chest. And I walked through the door. The room was bigger than I expected. 3 judges sat behind a long table. 2 men and a woman. The woman was in the middle, older, with silver hair and sharp eyes that looked at me like she could see right through my skin. "Emma Thompson," she said, looking at her papers. Then she looked up at me, and something flickered in her face. Just for a second. "We've been expecting you." Before I could say anything, she added something that made my heart stop. "I believe you have a letter for us." The older judge, the one with the silver hair, held out her hand. I walked toward her. 3 steps. That's all it took to cross the room. But it felt like walking across the entire town, across every year of my dad telling me I wasn't good enough, across every time Madison broke something I loved and nobody cared. I handed her the letter. My fingers were shaking a little. I couldn't help it. The envelope was still sealed, just like it had been when it arrived in the mail 3 weeks ago, with my name on it and a smaller envelope inside that said to the presiding judge of the Thompson Scholarship Audition. The judge took it. Her nameplate said Dr. Margaret Chin. She looked at the envelope for a long moment, then looked at me. "Emma," she said. "Do you know what's in here?" No, ma'am. You haven't read it? It said sealed. I didn't open it. She nodded, like I'd just passed some kind of test I didn't even know I was taking. Then she picked up a letter opener from the table and slit the envelope clean across the top. The room was so quiet I could hear the paper tear. She pulled out a single sheet of paper, handwritten, and started reading. The other two judges watched her. I watched her too. I didn't know what else to do. I saw her eyes move across the page. Once. Twice. Then her face changed. I mean really changed. Her professional judge expression, the one that was probably trained by years of sitting in rooms like this, just sort of melted. And for a second, she looked like somebody's grandmother reading a letter from a grandchild they hadn't seen in years. "Oh," she said, very quietly. "Oh, I see." She put the letter down and looked at me. Really looked at me. "Emma, do you know a woman named Patricia Morrison?" The name hit me like a punch. Patricia Morrison. My mother's violin teacher. The woman who taught my mom when she was my age. The woman my mom used to talk about like she was some kind of angel who'd saved her life through music. She was my mother's teacher, I said. But I never met her. She passed away before I was born. Dr. Chen nodded. Patricia Morrison was not just your mother's teacher. She was mine as well. She paused. And 40 years ago, she was the founding donor of this scholarship. I felt the floor shift under my feet. You see, Emma, this scholarship was originally created for students who showed exceptional promise but lacked support. Financial support. Family support. The kind of support every young musician deserves but not every young musician gets. She tapped the letter with one finger. Patricia wrote this letter to be read at your audition. She wrote it before you were born. Before your mother even met your father. She left instructions with her estate that this letter was to be delivered to you, sealed, when you applied for this scholarship, and not a moment before. I tried to speak but my throat was too tight. Dr. Chen continued. I'm going to read you part of this letter, Emma. I think you should hear it. She lifted the paper and began to read. Her voice was different now. Slower. Warmer. Like she was speaking words that mattered. To the judges of the Thompson Scholarship. My name is Patricia Morrison. I am writing this letter because I know a girl I have never met. Her name will be Emma Thompson. She will be the daughter of my most beloved student, Sarah Thompson. And if I am right about who she will become, she will need you. My eyes started burning. I knew Sarah when she was 14 years old. She was brilliant. Gifted in ways I rarely see. But her family did not understand her. Her father said music was a waste. Her mother was too afraid to stand up to him. Sound familiar? It should. It's the story of half the great musicians I ever taught. Dr. Chen paused, looked at me, and kept reading. So I taught Sarah something more important than vibrato or bow technique. I taught her that talent can survive almost anything, as long as it has one thing, a witness. Someone who sees it. Someone who believes in it. Someone who refuses to let it die. The tears were coming now. I couldn't stop them. And I didn't want to. Because for the first time in my entire life, someone I'd never even met had seen me. Had known what my life would be like before I even lived it. Now the serious part. I have arranged with my estate that a portion of the scholarship funds be specifically designated for Emma Thompson, should she ever apply, and should you judges agree she has the talent. This is not charity. This is not favoritism. This is me, from wherever I am now, being the witness. Dr. Chen finished the letter and set it down. The other two judges looked at me differently now. The man on the left, the one who'd seemed bored when I walked in, was leaning forward with his hands folded. Well, Dr. Chen said. It seems Patricia Morrison has done half our job for us. But there's still the matter of the other half. She gestured at my violin case. You came here to play, didn't you? Yes, ma'am. And your bow? Is it the one Patricia's letter mentions? The one your grandmother bought you? I froze. The broken bow. The bow Madison snapped in half this morning. The bow my dad smirked at like it was some kind of joke. No, ma'am. That bow is broken. Broken how? I could have lied. I could have said it was an accident. I could have protected Madison the way I'd been taught to my whole life. Cover up. Make excuses. Pretend everything was fine. That was the Thompson family way. But something inside me had snapped this morning, just like that bow. And I was done pretending. My older sister broke it, I said. On purpose. 4 hours ago. Because she said my practicing was annoying. My dad saw the whole thing. He smiled. He told me I should have been more careful with my things. The words came out flat. Matter of fact. Like I was reading a weather report. But the judges heard them. I could see it in their faces. I see, Dr. Chin said. Her voice had gone very calm. The kind of calm that was probably hiding something a lot bigger underneath. So what bow are you using now? Mine, actually, said a voice from the back of the room. I turned around. Mrs. Park was standing in the doorway. She must have come in behind me. She had her arms crossed and her chin up, like she was ready to fight somebody and looking forward to it. That's my bow she's holding. I lent it to her this morning after she climbed out her bedroom window to get to my house. Which, by the way, is about 4 miles from where she lives. She ran most of the way. Dr. Chin raised an eyebrow. She climbed out a window? She had to, Mrs. Park said. Her father had taken her car keys. Told her she wasn't going anywhere today. So she borrowed my bow and I drove her here. The judges exchanged looks. The man on the left wrote something on his notepad. I've been teaching Emma for 4 years, Mrs. Park continued, walking toward the judge's table. She pays for her own lessons doing odd jobs around my house because her father won't pay a cent. She practices on a violin that's 40 years old, that her mother left behind when she left. And she's the most dedicated student I have ever taught. Bar none. Including you, Margaret. Dr. Chin smiled a little. High praise from you, Julia. I don't give it lightly. You know that. There was a long silence. Then Dr. Chin turned back to me. Well, Emma. It seems you have quite a few people in your corner today. One of them dead for 14 years and still fighting. She gestured at the chair in the center of the room. I think it's time we heard you play. Don't you? I walked to the center of the room. Put my violin on my shoulder, Mrs. Park's bow in my hand. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The piece was the first movement of Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto. I'd practiced it 1,000 times. In my room. In Mrs. Park's living room. In the garage when Dad said I was making too much noise. But this was different. This was the moment that everything had been building toward. I closed my eyes. Thought about my mother, who used to hold my hands and show me how to position my fingers. Thought about my grandmother, who bought me the bow because she believed in something nobody else in my family could see. Thought about Patricia Morrison, a woman I'd never met, writing a letter before I was born, betting on a girl she could only imagine. And then I played. The first note came out shaky. But the second one came out strong. And by the third, I wasn't thinking anymore. I was just playing. The notes poured out of me like they'd been waiting to escape for years. Every frustration, every humiliation, every time I'd bitten my tongue and shrunk myself down to fit inside the tiny space my family had made for me. All of it came pouring through my fingers into the strings. I played for what felt like hours, but was probably about 8 minutes. When I finished, my arms were shaking and my face was wet. The room was completely silent. Then Dr. Chin stood up. And she started to clap. The other 2 judges stood up too. And they were clapping. All three of them. Dr. Chen had tears in her eyes. The man on the left, the one I thought was bored, was shaking his head like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Mrs. Park was crying openly. No shame about it. Emma, Dr. Chen said when the clapping stopped. The full scholarship is 4 years at the conservatory. Living expenses included. We don't give it to freshmen. We've never given it to a freshman in 57 years of this program. She walked around the table and stood in front of me. But Patricia Morrison's letter created a specific exception. One we are honored to grant. Welcome to the Morrison Conservatory Preparatory Program. Full scholarship. You start in September. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. You'll need your parents' signature on some paperwork, she added. But based on what I've heard today, I suspect that might be complicated. So I'm going to give you my card. When you're ready, you call me. We'll figure it out. She pressed a business card into my hand. And Emma? One more thing. Ma'am? Your father and your sister? She leaned closer, her eyes sharp. They have no idea what they just lost. None. And one day, they're going to realize it. And that's going to hurt them a lot more than anything you could ever do to them. I stood in that room holding Mrs. Park's bow and a business card and 100 years of somebody believing in me before I was even born. And for the first time since my mother left, I felt like I could breathe. Chapter 3. The paperwork. I walked out of that audition room with Mrs. Park's arm around my shoulder and a business card burning a hole in my pocket. The hallway was empty. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. Your father took your car keys, Mrs. Park said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. He said if I was gonna waste my time on music, I could walk. Then I'm driving you home. She squeezed my shoulder. And I'm coming inside with you. The drive back to my neighborhood felt different. The streets looked the same. Same mailboxes. Same lawns. Same pickup trucks and driveways. But I wasn't the same girl who'd left that morning with a broken bow and a sister laughing at her. Mrs. Park didn't say much. She just drove with one hand on the wheel and the other holding a coffee cup she'd gotten from the vending machine. Every few minutes she'd glance over at me like she was checking I was still there. Still real. Still breathing. You know what Patricia Morrison used to say? She asked when we stopped at a red light. What? She said talent is cheap. Discipline is expensive. But survival? She looked at me. Survival is priceless. And you, Emma Thompson, are a survivor. The light turned green. We kept driving. When we pulled up to my house, Dad's truck was in the driveway. So was Madison's car. The living room lights were on. Through the window I could see the flicker of the TV. Probably some football game. Probably Dad in his recliner with a beer. Probably Madison on her phone, scrolling through whatever Madison scrolls through. My stomach tightened. You ready? Mrs. Park asked. No. Good. Let's go anyway. We walked up to the front door together. I had my mother's violin case in one hand and Mrs. Park's bow in the other. The envelope from Dr. Chen was tucked inside my jacket pocket. The scholarship letter. The impossible thing that had actually happened. I opened the door. Dad was exactly where I thought he'd be. Recliner. Beer. Football. He didn't even look up when we walked in. Madison was on the couch. She looked up. She saw Mrs. Park. Her face did something complicated. Who's this? Dad asked, eyes still on the TV. This is Mrs. Park, I said. My teacher. Now he looked. The one who's been filling your head with all this music nonsense? The one who's been teaching me for 3 years, I said. For free. Because she believed in me. Dad snorted. Believed in you. Right. How'd that audition go? Did they believe in you too? I pulled the envelope out of my jacket. My hands were shaking but my voice came out steady. Actually, yeah. They did. I handed him the letter. He read it. His face went through stages. Confusion. Disbelief. And then something darker. Something uglier. What the hell is this? It's a scholarship, I said. Full ride. Morrison Conservatory Preparatory Program. I start in September. This is a joke. It's not a joke, Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Park stepped forward. Your daughter just became the first freshman in the history of that program to receive a full scholarship. The judges were extremely impressed. I don't remember asking you, Dad said. I'm aware of that. But I'm here anyway. Madison grabbed the letter from Dad's hand. She read it. Her face went pale. This can't be real, she said. You broke her bow. She couldn't have, you broke her bow? Mrs. Park's voice changed. It got quiet. Dangerously quiet. You deliberately broke her bow? Before the most important audition of her life? Madison's mouth opened and closed. I didn't, it was an accident, you're lying, I said. I'd never said that to her before. Not out loud. Not in front of Dad. You took my bow and you snapped it. You said I didn't deserve it. You said Mom's violin should have gone to you. The room went silent. The football game kept playing. Somebody scored a touchdown. The crowd roared. Dad stood up. He was bigger than me. He'd always been bigger than me. But for the first time in my life, I didn't step back. You're not going to any music school, he said. You're gonna graduate high school and get a real job and stop wasting your time on this fantasy. It's not a fantasy. It's real. The scholarship is real. Doesn't matter. You need my signature on the paperwork. And I'm not signing. There it was. The thing Dr. Chen had warned me about. Mrs. Park didn't flinch. Mr. Thompson, I think you should reconsider. This is a life-changing opportunity for your daughter. The Morrison program has a 100% college placement rate. Graduates have gone on to Juilliard, Curtis, Berkeley, I don't care if they've gone to the moon. Dad crossed his arms. She's not going. Why? I asked. Because I said so. No. I shook my head. No. That's not a reason. That's never been a reason. You just don't want me to have anything. You don't want me to be happy. You didn't want Mom to be happy either, did you? That's why she left. His face went red. Don't you talk about your mother, she left because of you. Because you couldn't stand her playing. Because you made her choose between you and her music. And she chose wrong at first. She chose you. And you still made her miserable. You don't know what you're talking about. I know she left her violin here. I know she hasn't played in 14 years. I know every time I touch those strings I'm touching something you tried to destroy. Madison was just standing there. Watching. Her face looked strange. Like she was seeing me for the first time. Dad, she said quietly. Maybe we should just stay out of this. But if she really got a scholarship, I said stay out of it. Mrs. Park reached into her purse. She pulled out her phone. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to give you one chance to reconsider before I make a phone call. Who are you gonna call? The cops? She's a minor. She's my kid. I make the decisions. Actually, Mrs. Park said, I was going to call Dr. Elaine Chen. She's the director of the Morrison program. She's also a close personal friend of the conservatory's legal counsel. And she mentioned to me, just before we left, that the Morrison Foundation takes a very dim view of parents who interfere with scholarship recipients. There are clauses in the charter. Provisions for special circumstances. Legal mechanisms that allow the foundation to act in the student's best interests when a parent is uncooperative. Dad stared at her. You're bluffing. I'm really not. Patricia Morrison wrote those provisions herself. She'd seen too many talented kids get crushed by parents who didn't understand. She made sure the foundation had teeth. Mrs. Park held up her phone. Shall I dial? The silence stretched. The football game went to commercial. Somebody was selling trucks. Somebody was selling beer. Madison was looking at me now. Really looking. You really got it? She asked. You really got the scholarship? Yeah, I said. I really got it. How? Because I'm good. Because Mrs. Park taught me. Because Mom left me her violin. I looked at her. And because somebody believed in me before I was even born. Somebody who'd never even met me. Somebody who thought I was worth investing in. That letter, Mrs. Park said quietly. The one the judge opened. It was from Patricia Morrison. She wrote it 14 years ago, before she died. She'd heard your mother play once, at a master class. She never forgot her. And when she found out your mother had a daughter named Emma, she added a codicil to her will. A special fund. Just for you. Just in case. Dad's face went from red to something else. Something I'd never seen before. He looked scared. That can't be legal, he said. It's perfectly legal, Mr. Thompson. And it's already been executed. The scholarship is yours, Emma. The paperwork is just paperwork. If your father refuses to sign, the foundation's legal team will step in. They'll petition for an educational guardianship. They'll argue that your father's refusal constitutes educational neglect. And they'll win. Do you know why they'll win? Dad didn't answer. Because Patricia Morrison was very, very thorough. And very, very rich. And she made sure that no parent would ever stand between a talented child and their future. I looked at my father. He looked smaller somehow. Smaller than the recliner. Smaller than the room. You can sign the papers, I said. Or you can watch them take me anyway. Either way, I'm going. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then Madison did something I didn't expect. She walked over to where my mother's violin case was sitting. She opened it. She looked at the old instrument inside. The one that had been silent for 14 years. Mom really played this? She asked. Mom was really good, I said. Better than me. Better than anyone in this town. Madison touched the wood. Just barely. Like she was afraid it would break. I'm sorry, she said. About the bow. I didn't say anything. I was jealous, she continued. You had something. Something real. And I didn't have anything. So I wanted to break it. That's not an excuse. I know. She closed the case. But it's the truth. Dad was still standing there. Still looking at Mrs. Park's phone. Still calculating. Fine, he said finally. Fine. I'll sign. Good, Mrs. Park said. The papers will arrive next week. You'll have 48 hours to sign and return them. If you don't, the legal process begins. Is that clear? Crystal. Mrs. Park put her phone away. She looked at me. Emma, I think we should go. Is there somewhere you can stay tonight? She's staying here, Dad said. No, I said. I'm not. I walked to my room. I grabbed a bag. I packed clothes. I packed my mother's violin. I packed the letter from Dr. Chen. I packed the old photograph of my mother that I kept under my pillow. The one where she's holding her violin and smiling. The one from before. When I came back out, Dad was back in his recliner. The football game was back on. Like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. I'll be at Mrs. Park's, I said. You know where to send the papers. He didn't answer. Madison was standing by the door. She looked like she wanted to say something. But she didn't. I walked out. Mrs. Park drove me to her house. She made me hot chocolate. She let me cry. She didn't say, "I told you so," or "everything happens for a reason," or any of the other things adults say when they don't know what to say. She just sat with me. "You know," she said eventually, "Patricia Morrison used to say that the hardest thing about being talented isn't the work. It's the people who want you to be small so they can feel big." "I'm tired of being small," I said. "Then stop." I looked at her. "You have a full scholarship to one of the best music programs in the country. You have a dead woman who believed in you before you drew your first breath. You have a teacher who's not going anywhere. And you have talent. Real talent. The kind that doesn't come along very often." She leaned forward. "Your father and your sister? They're small people, Emma. And small people can't make you small unless you let them. So don't let them." I thought about my mother. About her violin. About the sound it made when I played. About the silence she'd lived in for 14 years. I wasn't going to live in silence. The next morning I called Dr. Chen. "I'm ready," I said. "Tell me what I need to do." And she did. 6 weeks later, I moved into the dormitory at Morrison Conservatory. My father signed the papers. I don't know if it was the legal threat or Madison or something else. I don't really care. He signed. Madison sent me a text the day I left. It said, "I'm sorry. For real this time." I didn't respond. Maybe someday I will. But not yet. Not until I've figured out who I am without them telling me. Mrs. Park came to my first recital. She sat in the front row. She cried. I played my mother's violin. I used the bow Mrs. Park had given me. And when I finished, I looked out at the audience and for just a second, I thought I saw someone who looked like my mother. Someone smiling. Probably just my imagination. But maybe not. The day after the recital, I went to the library. I looked up Patricia Morrison. I found her picture. She looked exactly like I thought she would. Strong face. Sharp eyes. A tiny smile, like she knew something you didn't. I found her grave in the conservatory cemetery. It was simple. Just her name and dates and one line, "Some gifts take a generation to arrive." I stood there for a long time. "Thank you," I said finally. "For believing in me before anyone else did." The wind blew. The leaves rustled. And somewhere, I swear, I heard someone playing violin. Maybe it was a student practicing. Or maybe it was Patricia Morrison, still listening. Still believing. Still making sure that talented kids got their chance. I'm still at Morrison. I'm still playing. I'm a sophomore now. I've won 3 competitions. I've been invited to study at Curtis next summer. My father still lives in that house. He still watches football in his recliner. Madison's in community college. We talk sometimes. Not much. Mrs. Park still teaches. She still gives free lessons to kids who can't afford them. She still has my mother's old recital program on her wall. And I still have the sealed letter. The one Dr. Chen opened. The one Patricia Morrison wrote 14 years ago, before I even existed. I keep it in my violin case. Sometimes, before a performance, I take it out and read it. It ends with the same line every time. The line that changed everything. Give this girl a chance. She deserves it. Trust me. I did. I do. I will. And that's the whole story. Not about revenge. Not about winning. Just about someone who believed in me before I was born, and a teacher who never gave up, and a mother who left me her violin. The rest is just music.